Rise to the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almighty and everlasting God, who presides over all things in heaven and earth, come and preside over these deliberations so that those that make the decision may be guided by your wisdom.
Okay, thank you. Welcome to the December 5th, 2024 work session of City Council. As you can see, there is a very sparse agenda, to put it mildly. So with that in mind, during the work session, we'll go directly into council presentations. And that would start with Mr. Belisco.
Nothing today, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Mirren?
Yes, I just have a question. The large item pickups, how did we do on that? For Charlie, the large item pickups that we had, how did we do? I'm sorry.
Very well. It worked out very well. The residents were great, very cooperative, followed the process. We didn't have any debris laying around or non-ticketed items that I'm aware of. Everything went very, very smoothly. Okay. So we're very pleased. Right. I don't have an actual number. Last I heard, it was somewhere in the area about 4,500 or something.
Great. All right, thank you. And that's all I have for today.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mirren. Mrs. McClay is excused. Mr. Brooks.
Just some positive things. I'm pleased to see that Kirby Park, I drove through Kirby Park and how the paving has all been done. It's very nice, and the bump is all gone, and you can speed again. No. And I'm glad to see the progress on the Hazel Wall is coming together very nicely, and I'm happy to report that the Oostrap Free Library in my district has been moved, and they're just about ready to open, and I'm sure we'll all get an invitation for their grand opening in a couple of weeks or next month, and I guess we'll reschedule Essex and Hudson,
yeah, Tony,
whenever.
Yeah, I apologize, but I want to walk with you, but I think the weather might be warming up a little bit too, so
okay.
We'll get together, I promise.
Sounds good. No, nothing else, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Mr. Thomas, anything?
Nothing this evening.
Mayor, did you have anything for us this evening you wish to share? No? Okay, thank you. The only thing I'd like to mention, and I know we like to do little updates about what we've been doing and behind the scenes type of things. As we all know, the city is a member of the Pennsylvania Municipal League. Has been for many, many years, a proud member, and as are many other municipalities in the state. And the Municipal League, as you know, advocates for municipalities such as ours when it comes to legislation or basically anything that we might get involved in. I've been involved in the legislative committee for several years, and we recently met about 2 weeks ago and discussed several of the things that are going on, and some are specific to townships, boroughs, and some are in general, and some are specific to third-class cities. One of the things we talked about that's specific to us that is kind of frustrating is the use of radar by local municipalities, and that is still floundering around. It gets reintroduced every year, and it dies for one reason or another. So the Municipal League is a strong proponent of the use of radar by municipalities. We are, as you probably know, the only state in the whole country that does not allow municipalities to use local radar, or local municipalities use radar for one reason or another. They kind of feel like it's a money-making tool. Of course, if you wanted to go out and make money, you'd get a stopwatch and paint a couple lines on the road and be a whole lot cheaper. But that's not the intent of it, of course, to use radar. But that continues on. One of the other things that is of local interest to us that just actually was signed into law by the governor about a month ago, and I'm sure the administration is well aware of this, is what's called post-traumatic stress injury involving first responders. As we know, first responders are exposed to things that we can't even imagine, and they're asked to do things that we would never even think of doing, and they're doing this on a continuous basis. And sometimes it takes its toll. It's PTSD, PTSI. We kind of associate that with the military, and rightfully so. but our first responders, our firefighters, and our police officers across the country are exposed to this on a regular basis. And unfortunately, to be quite candid, the suicide rate among first responders is extremely high, and it's been associated with PTSI. So there's been talk about PTSI benefits being extended to first responders, and there were some issues and problems with that. The Pennsylvania Municipal League was strongly behind that, but they didn't want that to be an uncapped, unfunded mandate for local municipalities. As you can imagine, it could potentially be uncontrollable. So fortunately, working with the legislators, the Municipal League was able to come to what I think was a very reasonable solution that allowed our first responders to access much needed care much quicker, but there are caps on it. It cannot go on infinitely. There are qualifications that you must do, and it doesn't have to be a result of a specific incident. It can be a long-term thing too, with the approval of a licensed psychologist or psychiatrist, which gets them into the workers' compensation mode much quicker. And we want that. We want to make sure that we're doing everything we can for our first responders. So that was just signed by the governor about a month ago, I think the end of October. And hopefully, I mean, it's one of those things, it's like insurance. You hope that you never have to use it, but it's something that we want to provide for our first responders, those that are in need and can demonstrate a need for this type of treatment in a much quicker way without waiting for it, if you have somebody that's in need of it. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. It's just one of the things that the Municipal League advocates for with municipalities and works for municipalities so that it is the best fit for the city and, of course, our employees. And there are several other things we're working on, too. We're looking at tax reform. We're looking at issues that address our problems with tax-exempt properties that we all know or we struggle with every year, too, especially at this time of year. So those things are on the horizon. We're looking at those as well. So I just wanted to bring that to everyone's attention.
Bill, on that same note, I know we've talked about it in the past, Tony and Bill yourself, and Stan, you weren't before your time, but about the, is PML looking into, I know we talked about it and you were going to talk with them about the x-ray machines in City Hall for residents coming in. Is there any movement on there? Has there been any talk?
I'm glad you brought that up because that was also discussed about local control over firearms in municipal buildings, and that is something that probably is going to be resurfacing. As you know, when we are at the end of the year and the sessions are all over with now, and we would need somebody to introduce that bill, and they are looking, they are working on that.
I just think it's so ridiculous that we don't have that capability.
It is absurd that local government does not have control over that. And it's been a fight, it's been a tug of war, but it is very much on the horizon as well. So thank you for bringing that up. Okay, and that is all that I would have. If we have nothing else, then we will adjourn for a moment or two and we'll get into the regular session.
Just give us a second to
Thank you. Take a break.
just switch the tape.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almighty and everlasting God, who presides over all things in heaven and earth, come and preside over these deliberations so that those who make the decisions may be guided by your wisdom.
Hey, roll call.
Roll call, Mr. Belushko.
Still here?
Mrs. McClay is excused. Mr. Beard.
Here.
Mr. Brooks.
Here.
Mr. Barrett.
Here.
Also in attendance is Mayor George Brown, Controller Tony Thomas, Administrator Charlie McCormick, City Attorney Tim Henry, Assistant City Clerk Tracy Smith, and Administrative Assistant Lisa Sanfilippo. Good evening. Welcome to tonight's regular session. Please turn off all cell phones. Following are examples of some important council rules. They are not intended to be a complete list. Please adhere as closely as possible to the 5-minute speaker presentation time limit. No persons are allowed to address the council from beyond the rail, except the speaker at the dais who has the floor. Chairperson shall preserve order and decorum and prevent attacks on personalities. Chairperson shall determine all points of order. No person except city officers or their representatives shall be permitted within the rail during any meeting without the express permission of council. Council kindly asks that the public please vacate the building within 10 minutes after the meeting adjourns And finally, when the members of administration are speaking, please speak into the microphone.
Okay. All right, we have no items on, no legislative items on the agenda, so we will go directly into, again, presentations by council members.
Nothing more.
Mr. Maron?
Nothing.
Mr. Brooks, anything?
Nothing ever.
Okay, and Mr. Thomas, nothing, okay. That in mind, we'll go into the public discussion, and that would be Angel Mathis. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Hello, everyone. Angel Mathis, Wilkes-Barre. I just have one thing, but I want to say thank you for making it through another year at this glorious council, and I'm glad that I could come more frequently now. But the issue that I have is last week we were actually driving down Wilkes-Barre Boulevard, and I do understand the role of first responders. However, it's very frightening when you have an officer responding to an emergency and they are driving through traffic, opposing traffic. Like really opposing traffic, where it's like you're coming around the corner and boom, they're right there going opposing traffic. So I do understand like Wilkes-Barre Boulevard does get really busy. However, is it possible that, you know, I don't know. I just see that if that continues, someone is really going to get seriously hurt, and it's not because they're doing something wrong, because it's like you either turn this way to the curb or that way to the divider. But when they're coming directly at you and all you hear is sirens, the first thing you do is you look to see where they're coming from. Never do you expect that if you're going westbound, that they're coming eastbound, directly headed towards you. That's all I have.
You know, if you, just speaking from experience, if you have a specific incident, you can reach out to the administration or to the police department and specifically tell them the date, what it was, what you saw, and I'm sure that they would investigate it. And if there was some wrongdoing on someone's part, they would take action. And if you still have, if this is recent, you can still do that if it's not something you don't do.
I remember the day.
Okay, all right. Mr. Troy.
Yes, Sam Troy and Joseph Lane. Somewhat disappointed that I don't quite understand why there's no agenda. I mean, I think it's a little disgraceful in a sense, because it tells me that, and even when you went around the table, there's not too much in anybody's mind. Well, I would like to pose the question to, and I'm glad the mayor's in attendance, to mayor and councilman. And if you don't have an answer to this question, it's okay. I guess it tells me a lot if you don't answer. But what if I asked you, if I passed around a survey and said, what are the city's major problems? What problems do we face, if any? I get the impression, being that there's no agenda and that there's not much in anybody's mind, the city doesn't have any problems. I mean, nothing drastic. What do you think, Mayor? But in case, I mean, if anybody wants to intervene and maybe mention one, you know, one problem, I could propose a couple, and maybe you could ponder these to see if they're actual problems, bona fide problems, and more importantly, or just as importantly, how can they be solved or resolved? And I think, well, I mean, there's a lot of problems, I think. And you could get very vague or you can get specific. But I think one major question is, and I think the mayor and this council and mayor's administration has pretty much ignored, is how we can improve the quality of life. I'd like to pose this question. How do we improve the quality of life in the city for the residents? I'm not talking about King's College and Wilkes College and some nonprofit organizations, the Chamber of Commerce. I'm talking about for the people who, as I like to keep quoting that line, do the living and dying around here and pay the taxes, you know, pay you guys salaries, pay the salaries of all the employees here who just got a very significant raise. I know it wasn't your fault, Mayor, even though you granted the raise. It was a CBA, right? Collective bargaining agreement. But at the end of my speech, which is only a couple of minutes away, if anybody has any response to say, what are the city, to that question, what are the city's problems? How do we face them? How do we overcome them? I think one major problem that I would like, in light of the fact, that's just a general question. How do we improve the quality of life? I don't think the mayor or anybody else here has taken this question to heart. I think one way we can improve the quality of life is relieving the tax burden on the average taxpayer. And everybody, the mayor and the so-called budget analyst, Brian Sweats, who's paid over $100,000 a year to come up with some answers to resolving the city's finances. I don't think it has come up with much. All I hear is that it's a numbers game, We could go over the number in terms of revenues, or we can go under it. Same thing with the expenditures. But on a more realistic sense, I think this is a serious point, and the city's fiscal pulse, I think, is weakening. And I've asked in the past, and I want to just mention that I talked to Mr. Henry today. It was very congenial about the situation. I wanted to know about the budget, if it can still be tweaked, even though it's technically a done deal. It was passed. It still can be tweaked, Bill. If you decide, for instance, to give the taxpayers a break, Mr. Brown, or any of you people, maybe 1% for senior citizens or people facing financial hardship, 1% in their property taxes, or give them an extra 30 days. I don't think that's asking much. How much revenue would you lose there? How much can be gained? You may have to, as Tim indicated, you may have to pass another budget. But for that small of an amount, I don't think you would. These are the kind of questions that have to be explored. I think the city's fiscal priorities are not too good. And there's too much pandering. You know what pandering means, right, Mayor? There's too much pandering, with all due respect. I mean, there is a lot of pandering in this city to special interests, like Keys College, Wilkes College, the Chamber, et cetera. There's not enough so-called pandering to the ordinary citizen. There's no attempt on anybody's part. Just because you didn't raise taxes this year, Mayor, I mean, that to me is just an indication of being smug. Because the way I look at things, well, you could grant a 3 to 6% increase and also an increase in health benefits. I realize that CBA stuff, yes, but you could have blunted it, I think, if you really wanted to. These people got all these breaks, and what did we get? The taxpayers, nothing. We got with the same tax rate that we got, which is, to me, is not good enough. Can I take an extra 10 seconds just to point something out? On the federal level now, you might have heard, there's going to be established a Department of, what's it called, Economic Efficiency or something like that. They're going to cut millions and millions of dollars. I'm just going to take 10 more seconds. From primarily, and you know what it's going to be because we got a Trump administration. It's going to be Social Security, Medicare, they're going to take the cuts. We, the residents of the city, are going to suffer, and there's going to be no way in terms of tax relief to compensate for that suffering. Okay, that's all I got to say. But if anybody has a question, a response to that point about does the city have any problems, what are they, how can we confront them? Thank you. See, I didn't go too far over.
I don't know if you care to respond.
Nice soup, by the way, Mary.
Thank you. Like I said last week, 48 short, if you ever want to borrow it.
What's that, Mary? Oh, you're 48 short?
If you ever want to borrow it.
I can't remember my size. I haven't worn a suit in a while.
Sam,
40 regular.
I'm going to answer you out of respect for you, okay? Yeah, the city has problems, and we deal with problems every day, but the reason there's nothing on the agenda tonight is we just had a meeting about a week ago, okay? And we do have issues we're dealing with, okay? But I had nothing on the agenda for tonight because, as I said, we just had a meeting about a week ago or so, okay? But we do have meetings every day, okay? We're in discussions with trying to resolve issues. So, yes, we have issues like every other city, Sam, okay? And it's ongoing how we try to resolve them. As far as giving money back to the people, I'm just happy that we've had, and you don't like this, but you should like it because you're an advocate for the people, the fact that, once again, there's not a tax increase. You've seen other municipalities, some have 33%, some have 19% increases. We've had 0, Sam, and to run a city the size of Wilkes-Barre with all the services that we provide, okay, the best police, the best fire department, best DPW, the best health department, and with the best employees that we have. It's not easy every year to do that without a tax increase. As you said, there are parts of collective bargaining agreements. That's not an excuse. That's something that was agreed upon by my administration, myself, and the unions. But we do the best we can, and I think council, our administration, does the best job we can to keep the residents fully supported by the services that we provide. Okay, we just did a major cleanup. We did white goods cleanup. We did large items like couches and chair cleanup, okay? We did recycling where you could recycle your electronics. We did shredding. These are all things above and beyond that we've decided to do this year to help out the residents. So everything we can do, we're doing. Not everyone's happy about it, but we do the best job we can. And for me to stand here and say to you, I'm very proud. Our budget's a projection. That's what a budget is. It's a projection, Sam, of what we believe is going to happen in the upcoming year based on the income and based on the expenses, the revenue versus expenses. That's how we put our budget together, Sam. And I believe our team did the best job they could in making sure that 2025 will be a year where we did not have to raise taxes once again. And you may not like it, you may not like me, but for 6 years, there's not been a tax increase. I'm very proud of that, okay? Very proud of that, especially what's going on in the city, the expenses, how they've raised. So, Sam, I'm giving you the best answer I can, okay, to your questions. They're kind of general, but sure, the city has issues, but I'm sure at the next meeting we'll have some things that we're going to be going before council to get their approval, okay?
Thank you.
And happy holidays, everybody.
Thank you, Mayor, for responding.
Give me a mark.
Didn't anybody have it? There's no problem. The city has no problems.
The only thing I'm going to say about
That's-
problems is, I know that we collectively bring problems to the city's attention, the administration specifically, on a pretty much daily basis. Email, things that you may not see, and they address the problems that we bring to them in a very timely manner, and they don't require legislation by and large, maybe occasionally.
What specifically, Bill? I mean,
I couldn't even get into all of them, but I'm sure that someday if you wanted to sit and talk about all of them, there's emails that go back and forth, and everyone here can attest to that. I'm not going to get into all of that right now, and I'm not going to...
you're a councilman, Bill. You got to have some suggestions. I don't understand.
We quite often come forward with suggestions. I love people that have problems and come to us with solutions at the same time. And that's what I like to hear, and that does happen. And if we can't find a solution together, then we work on it legislatively.
So I could just say...
Thank you. We're done.
Can I just make one statement?
One final statement. Go ahead.
I can or can't?
Holidays, we'll let you make one final statement.
I just could safely assume the city has no problems then.
No.
That's great.
that's
I
not
wish
true.
I could
Every
share
city
that
is.
belief.
As the mayor said, every city.
Nobody said a thing.
Thank you. Anything from council? Mayor, any closing remarks?
Can't wait to go home.
Thank you. Okay, motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Thank you, sir.
The city with no problems. I stand.
Oh, we
Stan,
have
we got any problems in the heights?
Nobody ever said we don't.
Tony, we got any problems in...